A little. I think they actually did a good job focusing on like anxiety from exams.
No mental health chats at all. Not even in like the guidance sessions. A lot of sex ed, badly done, but nothing to do with mental health.
I don't remember a time that we had a talk like that.
I couldn't even tell you like an experience from school at all.
We kind of got shown that one video that everyone gets shown about like suicide prevention, given a leaflet that has like numbers in it. And they didn't really talk about it properly until we were maybe in like 4th year.
You were always told you have counsellors or you have this person, but it didn't feel approachable.
I feel like we get memories of learning about depression. I think it seemed informational, remembering back. It seemed like they were providing a lot of information about mental health, maybe with not as much practicality of like what to do if your mental health is, not great. But I was in a school where it was in like a rough area. A lot of the teachers were just trying to survive. I think they were just trying to get us through and get us to the exams.
I don't think they did specifically, but I do remember a workshop when I was in high school. It must have been a mental health nurse giving us stuff about kind of breathing techniques and relaxation techniques and stuff. Otherwise, I don't remember anything else being mentioned.
Like when you talk to anyone really older and you try to explain how you're feeling because you don't really get it, and then they would say, like, oh, we all have bad days, and I think the problems of a child are obviously going to seem a bit insignificant in comparison to an adult's. So I don't blame anyone for having that response, but just when you get that, like, you just feel alone at the end of it.
My dad, like, I don't think me and my dad has even like had like a hug, and I'm like 32. Like, I think there was a time like I'd like dialed my dad and I like did that, and that was weird, even for me. Or for men, it's like hard, I think, to go into that type of conversation.
My friends did a bit, but I think it was kind of like a echo chamber of depressed kids. My family, not really.
My family's kind of blanket approach to mental health growing up was, fuck, you're all right. Just get your head down and get on with it.
Well, my family didn't talk about mental health, not even a little bit. It was, it was too taboo. It's a you problem, you figure it out. Don't tell anyone. Keep it to yourself.
Probably not as I was young. I think hard conversations were too hard to be had then. But when I got older, I started initiating them, so it became a bit more comfortable.
This was when my dad and mum split up. My dad lived abroad, and he was just like, I'm not going to be there anymore. I'm done. Like, I'm not going to be involved with the family. So my mum had to just step up and do everything, and I was too young to understand that. Maybe my sister and me, we definitely knew like we were both going through something, but we couldn't communicate it well, or maybe felt scared to talk about it. Because there's a lot of stigma, I think, with admitting that you're going through something. Like even the words like crazy and mental, like those two words in a negative form make you feel insecure even more about talking about it. Because you're like, I'm crazy, that terminology as well needs to change. Because I thought there was something wrong with me, where it's just like, I've gone through a lot, that's why I'm acting like this, it's so natural.
Like I knew of certain family members who maybe struggled with their mental health, and then with friends, I think we did speak about mental health, like especially in adolescence, but I don't think it was like a massive, like regular topic of conversation.
It's hard to like find a place to start. I remember just being in school and being really tired all the time. I wasn't focusing in my classes, and because of that I was getting told off quite a lot. When people were telling me off, I get so good at disassociating. I think by the time I got to like 17, I noticed that things started to maybe not feel very real anymore. I feel like I've messed some wires up in my head, and my parents got divorced quite young, when I was young, and I always thought I was unaffected by it until like, I went to therapy as an adult, and they were like, no, it's actually a lot of your behaviours are because of these kind of abandonment issues, whatever, from your dad. I got assaulted by a previous teacher of mine, and that was kind of tough to deal with because I came out as queer. My first experience with a man was my teacher. Kind of spoiled that for me a little bit, and even like since then, coming out, there's been one other assault as well, and that's with a guy, and I just felt like so unsafe exploring something new in me.
Probably even since quite a young age, struggled with depression. Obviously, at that age wouldn't have thought to name it or anything like that. And especially when I was a teenager, struggling with like sexual identity, all that sort of stuff, got like really depressed, self-harming, kind of suicidal thoughts, things like that. And it's always kind of been there throughout the years, not as bad as it was, because I've been to some counselling and I've had better support systems now. I've got better friends to talk about it with. And yeah, now I open up to my family about it as well. So yeah, still there, but a lot more manageable.
So I've always had ADHD, even though I didn't know it. I always thought I was just like kind of annoying and hyper. My family has a lot better understanding now. Like my gran, when I first got diagnosed with ADHD, she went and like done a like course on ADHD. The older generations can still learn, but I think the message that they got taught and the message that I received in youth was, you just fucking get on with it. I guess the first real experience I had of mental health was when I was 18 and I was working in a clothes shop. So at Christmas, they would just work 16-hour shifts. We did it until eventually I burned it, and it was my first feeling of burnout. And I remember being in my bed one day when I was 18 and I just couldn't get up. Like I couldn't get out of my bed. I just kind of melted a wee bit. It was my first experience in my nervous system and my brain being overwhelmed by repetitive work and unhealthy habits over a long period.
We were just brought up to like straight from Nigeria, brought up to go through whatever comes at you. So like, if you're sad, like just be happy then. Like, you know what I mean? I wasn't fully aware what we were going through.
I think I first noticed my own struggles around probably early teens, because it didn't feel like could be an open topic of conversation. I was always so confused about what it was I was feeling and why I was feeling it and why I was coping in the ways that I was. And I think that's how it presented as a young kid, was that sort of like rebellious kid that didn't listen and was against the world and thought everyone hated her. But it was actually, I didn't understand what was going on internally, so I projected that. Not to sound cliche, but I swear yoga has saved my life. And it's not the physical practice of it, it's the embodiment of it within my whole life. The way it's encouraged me to be more present, more mindful, to stop and listen to my body, to take note of how I'm feeling, the sensations showing up. I don't feel like I'm alienated from this vessel anymore through it. And I think it's encouraged me to take care of myself more too, which is just, for me, I think mental health is always going to be an ongoing thing. And I don't think that's a bad thing. You're in partnership with your mental health. You're not against it and you're not trying to drive it away. You actually have to walk hand in hand with it throughout your life. And when you realise that, it becomes a lot easier to actually process it.
So when my dad passed, it was a big change in my life. I had a very estranged relationship with my father where between the age of 11 and 21, I saw him once. When he passed, it was very difficult because one, it was a car accident, and two, the only way I found it was like through email, through my uncle messaging, which was like the strangest thing. Yeah, there's a lot of things that came with that. So that's my first experience of having a jolt and like feeling like something, you know, tackling such a big barrier in my life.
I got diagnosed with dyslexia in primary 6, and I remember being like, oh, there's something wrong with me. That's kind of sad. And it never really got addressed. And I remember people used to like bully me for it and be like, well, you're stupid. I used to have a really, really good friend when we were just like playing in the garden, and she went to leave and I hugged her and I almost kissed her. And I remember being like, why did I almost kiss her? And I remember like walking to school, and it'd be like a 20-minute walk. And the entire time that I was walking to school, I'd be like, you don't like girls, you don't like girls, you don't like just repeating it to myself. And like, that's not normal. It used to keep me up at night because I didn't even know that like gay people could exist. And then I had a really good friend who kind of opened me up to the idea of it being okay to like the same sex, and kind of helped me explore that part of like who I was. And I was like, a whole new world. Basically, in the end of 2020, I went home for Christmas, and I found out that I was pregnant, and ended up having a miscarriage. Luckily, I had Bruce, who's now my husband and the father of this one, and me and Bruce chatted for a really long time, and a lot of it had to do with my mental health, and it was how I was reacting to everything and how my view on everything was basically twisted because I'd had so many like influences of my upbringing, and things that had happened to me were so negative that I just couldn't see anything in a positive light. And so I went, okay, I need to fix this.
I always say you've got your physical health and your mental health. So with your physical health, sometimes you get bugs or injuries and we have to recover with them. Mental health is exactly the same. And I don't believe a single person who says that they've not struggled with their mental health, because it doesn't make sense. I do think that everyone needs to kind of go through that period of like kind of going for support. I think it really does help with your personal development, your ability to recognise your emotions and express them in a healthy way and cope with them in a helpful way. Therapy is a lot of hard work. There's lots of homework tasks. There's a lot of kind of having to face your fears, being with someone who has similar life experiences to you, so you're not sitting and having to explain yourself over and over. There are different things work for different people. For some people, cognitive behavioural therapy or other types of therapies that have got kind of a manualised approach. But for some other people, more person-centred, holistic way can help. So go into counselling instead. So many different types of professionals you could see, but it depends on what their training is and what they use in their day-to-day practice and whether or not that marries up with the goals that you want to achieve and what you want to work on too.
So I did some like counselling at uni, which wasn't good. And then I went to therapy for maybe 6 months, which was hard, but it really kind of helped me understand my own thought patterns.
First time I went to therapy, I was 15. I went back and forth through a lot of different like NHS given ones. Just weren't fit for me. I think also at a young age, you're scared of vulnerability. You're scared of the consequences of vulnerability. I was in a place where I was coping in ways that I shouldn't have been, that were like detrimental to me. I have had success through private therapy, which is a privilege because my lord is it expensive. I've had therapy for anxiety. I had therapy for my PTSD after my abusive relationship. More recently, I got therapy for my eating disorder, and I'm so proud to say that I was signed off a few months ago. If I can say one thing about all my struggles throughout the years, it's encouraged me to be softer with myself and to give myself grace, and I wouldn't change that for anything.
Therapy journey has been weird. I've had so many therapists I didn't like. After one of my attempts, I was off work for like 6 months, and they gave me like a counsellor from that, and I could just kept just like quoting like Freud and shit like that. I was like, this is really. I just felt like it was a hindrance to be there. I wasn't healing at all. I felt like I was there for her because the amount of times I was helping her with her computer. Other than that, I've always done private. Although it's really, really expensive. If I don't like them, I can just find someone else.
I was at university, and that's when I found out about like counselling for the first time and mental health. And I did some like NHS kind of therapy, which was, to be honest, it was quite scripted, which I found like too rigid for what I was going through. It was more just like a workbook with like, this is depression, do you have it, you're sad, like that's kind of it, rather than like the spectrum of what that can be and where it can go. Was in my third year, thinking about deferring and not going back for fourth year because of this news that came out about my dad. And I decided to do counselling through university, which I would say was one of my most positive experiences. It was very conversational. There was like a kind of support dog, which is part of the reason that I went to, because there was a little dog. And sometimes we talked for 2 hours, and then other times we talked for like an hour. It was very adaptable around how I was feeling, which I really enjoyed. Actually, she drew a lot of like mind maps, which I found really helpful, especially being creative, just like putting down words and like linking it and kind of finding like a linear line of like what's going on. I did that for 2 years at university because it was also free and it was funded, so really nice to have. I'm not going to not take it when I've got it, but after doing that, I mean, I wasn't like fully ever going to eradicate everything, but I was able to manage a bit better. And then we moved to this day where I've fully been diagnosed with emetophobia last year, so when I was 32. And now like managing that and understanding what that is, and felt like, oh, I'm focusing on my eating so much now. Like, but I also think it like flipped another side of the coin where it was like, looking at my eating, and I was like, okay, I drank coffee like it was juice, and I used that as like a hunger suppressant to avoid eating though, because then I thought the thought of eating and the thought of me being sick was like too much. I was like, if I drink this liquid, then I don't need to, like it's totally fine. So it really made me challenge that part of me, because I stopped drinking coffee completely, and I had to like think of like having 3 meals a day, which I never used to do, if I admit. So all of those kind of things, it like really made me look on how I lived and my lifestyle and my body and my health, which is such a big part of your life. You don't think about it. The diagnosis just kind of dig deeper and deeper, and it was just figuring out how it's been affecting my life.
Maybe I'm scared of therapy, maybe. Growing up, you're told to like, you just go through whatever it is, like you can figure it out, like just be tough or whatever. So then I think it's like pride, like thinking if I'm going to a therapist that like I'm weak or something, and that's not true. I don't believe that, but low-key your mind is saying, oh, what, you don't need to do that. Like I kind of use a lot of people around me now as like my therapist. Like I tell them certain things, like my partner, I'm like, yo, this is going on right now, talk it through, and then I understand it a bit better.
Therapy changed my life. The first time I went to therapy was a lovely Muslim woman, but I remember going to this woman and she was basically like, you need to go see your dad. And I was like, what? She's like, you've not met your dad, you need to go meet him, that's it. And I was like, oh shit, okay. And I went to meet my dad, and it did, it really changed my life, reconnected me with my full Arab side. And then I had like a depressive burnout in later years, back to therapy. And then when a lot of gender stuff started coming up for me, I found out that gender dysphoria is a symptom of neurodivergency. But when that started coming up for me, because I grew up in a scheme, I was like, no, that's not real. That gender, no, that's not real. And I went to therapy, and I had a lovely therapist at Charity that really helped me like just break through that fear. I was so scared. I was tense like this because I didn't want to present myself in an effeminate way in case like I got hurt. But because I was able to go to therapy and work through just the beginnings, I was able to go, no, fuck, maybe I can do this.
The first couple of times did not work. Did not enjoy it, really didn't like it. I went to my uni, tried to do therapy through that. The waiting list was like 3 years long, and I had 3 years left of uni. I then went to my GP, my local GP, put me on sertraline. Was on sertraline for a few months. It broke me as a human being. And I started talking to a therapist online. And I was like, oh, this is nice because I don't have to speak to them face to face. I don't have to look at them. They don't have to see me. And it was the first time that I actually felt like talking about stuff. It took me a while. It wasn't like a overnight, let's do therapy and it'll work. And I really enjoyed it.
I also kind of went through a few different types of therapy approaches as well. So I had a bit of CBT. I've had a bit of acceptance and commitment therapy, which is called ACT. And I've had a bit of compassion-focused therapy, which is called CFT. The person that I saw specialised in those forms, so they were able to dip in and out when it was appropriate for me. It was really, really helpful. So I think it depends on what you're bringing to the room and what you're needing support with. I would really like to see moving forward is professionals who do have sort of other identities rather than kind of status quo. So for example, I'm Palestinian. With everything happening back home, I would really benefit from having a Palestinian-only space. The last time I sought support was with someone who quite clearly did not really understand the situation at all. And I sort of said, I just don't think this is going to work, because I just felt like before I could even get into what I needed from them, I had to then sit and explain to them and educate them on what was going on and the reason why that was then impacting my own mental health. A lot of people who are from a marginalised background are really struggling to find the right fit for people. I'm really hopeful that maybe further down the line we'll have a bit more diversity in the people that we can see for support. It's about safety. Yeah. You know, it's a very vulnerable and exposing place to be, and you've got to feel safe.
I've been on antidepressants. I've been on them a couple of times, but you just kind of go in to the doctors, you say, this is how I'm feeling, and they just automatically put you on some pills. And for me, it didn't work. They made me really anxious. Like, there isn't any other support. And I think that's due to like a lot of services being defunded. There's not a lot of money in it. They haven't got the time to. But it's pretty disheartening that you go tell them your feelings and they just go, okay, here's a prescription.
If you've been on a waiting list with the NHS for months and months and months, maybe close to a year. And then you get someone you don't like, you're kind of just stuck with them because you don't want to be in that waiting list again. I've seen so many people make the same mistake that I made, where instead of getting therapy, you go on pills. But I feel like pills is just something to like get you okay just now until you get to therapy. Like, there's no pill that's going to solve trauma. Sometimes therapy feels like a lifeline. I started off in sertraline. I think that was the worst one of them all. I had a terrible doctor, and my GP just suggested it. And they gave me like a suicide hotline number, but at the time it wasn't suicidal, so I never called it. And every time I came back to him saying, I still feel terrible and nothing feels real, he was giving me a higher dose and just kept me like a higher and higher and higher dose every time I went. After a while, I felt nothing. Like sertraline, for me, put me in just this bubble of, I felt nothing at all, nothing good and nothing bad. And I just felt I was floating by. And then you start kind of questioning like, why am I alive if I don't feel anything? And then it drove me to more kind of like suicidal tendencies.
So I've been on zero medication, which I have been recommended by people sometimes. Not that I don't think I have any like hopes with it. There was a time I think I thought I don't want to be dependent on medication, or scared of it becoming like too much of a coping mechanism, like a focus on it too much. And I guess also with my eating, like swallowing stuff, pill, like things like that was triggering me a bit. I was like, not sure about doing that, but it's something I'm considering for sure.
I haven't been on medication, but I really believe that if you need medication, you should absolutely seek it out. It depends on what type of mental health difficulty you're maybe experiencing. Then that's when medication could be really helpful, just to kind of stabilise you a wee bit and get you to kind of learn the coping strategies, and then you can kind of wean yourself off. That's like, in a perfect scenario where you've not got everything else going on in your life. What I've noticed is that there's been a lot of kind of challenges in resource recently in terms of funding opportunities across the board. When things are really difficult financially, it means that vulnerable communities can be hit quite badly with it. We probably need to do a lot more as a community to hold each other up. We're human beings, but we're pack animals. I think that kind of work in terms of resource and stuff starts at home and sort of build up rather than relying on a sort of system that trickles down from the top, if that makes sense. We're definitely living in times where we've become very individualised. Everything's quite digitalised now, which has its pros and cons. The basic human interaction of a smile, or like saying hello to someone when you're walking down the street. And even if it's not going to lead to like a long-term friendship, it's still enough for you to be like, oh, that was a nice person, And I think it's very easy to feel isolated in these times, I think. And when you're struggling with your mental health, you're going to probably feel a lot more isolated. If we've got services that are struggling, like say, for example, Samaritans get a cut and then they can't meet the need in the same way, it's then going to have a knock-on effect. These services are set up with the best of intentions. There's a need there. That's why they're set up. That's why they're funded. I always say to people, we need to use them. Or if we sort of don't access them, it then becomes a problem, because those statistics will then go back to the people that fund them, and eventually it will get cut, if that makes sense. So it goes back again to that community kind of base. But I think it doesn't help when that anger goes towards, say, for example, you've been waiting a really long time to speak to someone and you finally speak to them and you want to make your voice heard. The other person on the receiving end is there with the best of intentions, and they're trying their best in a system that's not serving them either. With that climate, it can become a kind of us versus them kind of dynamic, and that then polarizes things. We have to see each other as the same, like members of community, the same community, and that we can help each other. The anger needs to go into action, and the action needs to be directed in the certain channels that will change things. There have been experiences for people where they've maybe had someone speak to them on the phone that has been really unhelpful or quite dismissive. You can speak to someone else. And at the end of the day, I always think if someone's kind of giving me that kind of, they're maybe just not being that available for me when I need the support, I think, well, there's obviously something going on for them, and we're all human. So can I speak to someone else? And I think it's about being able to have that open conversation about what is it you're looking for? Because I think quite often people will get kind of directed to different places that might not marry up with what they're looking for and what they need.
Yeah, I think I've learned to talk to the right people. Not everyone's good for receiving every bit of information. I open up a bit more to my parents, just like how I'm doing in general, but I still don't really trust enough to go into the really nitty-gritty of it without them panicking, because I don't want to worry them.
Having conversations with people and actually talking about it, like talking it through, even if the person can't help you or give you advice, they can just listen and then you've said it out loud. I think sometimes once it's out of your mouth, it's out of your head.
I'm definitely more open than I was, but I think it's always a struggle because you don't want to put something else on your friends and your family, so it's hard.
Like after everything that happened with my family, we have a weekly call, and we've been doing that for the last 5 years, where we go, hey, how is everyone? You know, and most of the time we're good and that's nice. Sometimes it's not, and we talk about it. It's a hard conversation, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. And, you know, it's only a hard conversation if you make it difficult.
I found, particularly with my parents, being able to be vulnerable and raw and open with them has encouraged them to do the same with me. And I think that was the issue growing up, was that they didn't want to show that side to them. You know yourself when you do go through those little blips in life. I still sometimes have that moment of like withdrawal or isolation, but it's more in like a self-introspective way. And when I'm having those open conversations, like, you know, I am in this place and I'm kind of struggling, I lose that guilt of taking that time for me, because I'm like, no, they know I'm not being a bad friend or a bad daughter or a bad sister. They know that I'm having a moment because I'm going through this. And then it's like, you ease off one less stress from your shoulders.
Yes, I talk about mental health very openly now. I would say not with family. My sister, yes. One thing that we're both, because we're mixed race, so my dad was Indian, it's hard when you lose a parent that is from like an immigrant from a different country, because it's almost like I'm losing my Indian heritage. So me and my sister are definitely like discovering that more, which is a really beautiful part. You know, she's learning like Indian Carnatic singing, which is like classical singing, and then my project that I'm doing has Hindi featured in it for that reason, because my project's about rejection and loss. I'm very vocal on my social media about it. I'm at this point where I'm like, no one talks about this enough, but I think talking about it more and having those conversations has been so freeing.
Friends, absolutely. Family, to a degree, you don't want them to worry. I'll go into the deepest on stage. I think it's important going up there going, we are fucking on the edge constantly. My brain is trying to kill me, and has been since I was like 11. However, that's quite funny, isn't it? And then go into it. So if anybody's going through something that's similar, I'm like, oh, I've been through that. Here's everything that I've learned about it. And I like the same when people tell me.
In my experience, there's not enough support for women experiencing domestic abuse. I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I don't know if there will ever be, because I think it's an area that they're happy to leave short in terms of funding, in terms of attention. I think the system itself protects the other side. And until that's changed, there's never going to be enough resources, materials. Charities, the aid services, the crises that we have are underfunded, they're struggling, they're being shut down, and it's not being projected enough. I'm trying to scream it over here, but it's so hard to be heard. Even as someone that's endured it, you think that people would listen more, but so often I'm like shunned, or I'm just not responded to. Because I'm privileged and I'm lucky enough to be here and to still have a voice and to be safe enough to use it, but there's so many people who aren't in that space.
So I think if it was me, I would do like a hiking thing where like meet up every week or two. While you're on that hike, you also get to vent and talk about your feelings, because there's nothing else to do. You're not going to be on your phone, and you're not going to have a pint or anything, and you feel better about venting these things when you haven't had a drink.
When I was working for the support work charity, I didn't get a lot of support for supporting the people, and the people I was supporting also were getting let down by the NHS services. I would introduce a service where, like a community hall kind of service, where people from different organisations are there, places like the Citizens Advice Bureau, someone from like the housing that can answer questions. Job Centre staff often go to places like the Simon Community, which is a organisation to help homeless people, and they go there to answer questions. But then someone that's like really informative, but also has maybe activities that people can do, because I think that's really important. Things like arts and crafts, music, yoga. I think it's really important for people to have somewhere they can go where they can talk to people, because I think especially when I was doing support work, that was what was hurting a lot of people. They didn't have friends, family that they could talk to.
I think what we need to do is start investing in the mental health services that we have, because we have them and they're good and they're in place, but they're underfunded and we don't do enough.
Something people facing, so something like a group community kind of space, only because I've experienced it like emetophobia and eating. I think if there was like a support group where we could talk about nutrition and health and like figuring out what your safe foods are, which is like a big part of emetophobia. So like everyone finding what their safe food is and talking about what that is for them and why it's that, and then how to bridge that gap and then talk about exposing themselves to other things to move forward in a positive space.
Short, informational videos. Just naming stuff and being able to go, oh, that's what I'm going through right now. That, I think, is the beginnings. And then that can allow for individual research. But I think if people could just learn about things, hear about things, I think short, information-packed, watchable shit. It can't be boring, because the ADHDers won't watch it. It needs to be short, it needs to be interesting, and it needs to be informational.
I feel like we need to have a space where people can form relationships locally in their community, which spark joy. There are so many great organisations out there that can support people. We're living in a very increasingly isolated day-to-day life. We're not managing to kind of see each other the way that we maybe would 20, 30 years ago. And I think that's where change can happen. Having opportunities where people can actually do activities that are maybe not on their day-to-day routine with other people can be such a beautiful way of just releasing those conversations, getting people to talk. There are so many great organisations out there that are doing that already, but I think we need more of it. And I think everyone has a responsibility to try and create some sort of change, some positive impact.
My coping mechanisms would be music, sometimes dancing. Yeah, I like my anime, like my movies, working out, sports, things like that. Like 100%, I'm in the moment. So if I'm like half and half, like multitasking and things, like I feel like I'm losing out on one or the other.
I usually cry to my cat for a little bit, who hates it. I'd usually try and see a friend or something, not even necessarily to talk about it, but I know if I'm feeling down, it's usually because I haven't seen anyone. That usually lifts my spirits a bit, and try and get outside. If I'm feeling really down, that's usually when I become a bit of a hermit. So go outside, see friends, and just have a nice little afternoon or something. Go to the south side, get a coffee.
I've got loads. Mine takes, if I find myself in a really bad place, it takes about 2 days of just getting myself back to a place where I can socialise again. The first day is me just sitting in it. I don't try to solve it in any way. I don't try to distract myself from my phone. I just try to sit in those feelings. And that is the hardest part. The next day is usually, I'll always go out and buy a snack and flowers. I don't know why, it cheers me up. I think it gets me outside. Then I'll come back and just having flowers in the house is nice. And then I'll have a shower and I'll listen to music in the shower and try to sing to it. And then I'll read my book. That always makes me feel better. I do read a lot.
Walks, going for walks. I think a lot of people do that. See, a hot shower that just changes my life. I don't know what it is. It resets my body, feeling clean and feeling nourished, and just, yeah. A lot of music, a lot of writing my feelings down. Drawing when I feel mentally in the space to do that.
You just wake up in the morning, A4 page, 3 A4 pages of whatever. It's sometimes called brain drain. That has been the most efficient, useful, short, doable method of clearing the brain that I've ever found. Waking up and for some reason going, oh fuck shit, what a day, Jesus. Oh fuck, I need to go shoot that documentary in the afternoon. Oh my God, it's freezing today. Oh, I've no message my Uncle Paul back. Shit, what do I need to... clears the brain.
I let myself treat myself now, I guess. I never used to before. It used to be like, you have to earn this. You need to do some type of housework, or you need to do something, or you need to you need to turn on the laundry and then you can have food. It's like, no, that's not how that works. I go, you know what? I need to sit down and I'm going to watch my favourite TV show and I'm going to enjoy it. The world is on fire, and but I would like a little moment of peace.
Not overstimulating myself with external distractions has become a big thing that I'm learning and working with. But I've realised the more I sit with my doom and my gloom and my sadness, the easier it gets to swallow and the easier it is to like dissipate it.
I will try and make sure that I've got my 30 minutes a day where I'm doing something. It can be a variety of different things. It could be Pilates or swimming or going for a wee walk or putting on my favourite album and dancing, like whatever it is. Moving your body's so important, and it boosts your natural stores of like endorphins, if that makes sense. So when your brain is operating at a lower level, you really need that to help boost you a wee bit.